Hi there, it's Natasha, and today I have a card for you featuring plenty of dies and a few stamps from AliExpress. First up, I've got this little card, and this is going to be one of the focal points of my card. I've just die cut it in some yellow cardstock and some black cardstock, and I'm just taking the wheels from the black one and sticking them on the yellow one. So a little bit of paper piecing. I am just using some multi-matte medium to glue them on to the card, and then I'm going to use some acetate to create a window for the car. That's my little car done. Now moving on to this road die. This one is actually meant to be separated, but I just use them together. I've cut one of them out in black cardstock, and then the solid one is designed to go behind the black one. You can use them separately or together, I guess. So I am just going to trace the solid one and use some fossilized amber distress oxide ink to create the yellow that will go behind the black lines, so that you'll see the yellow poking through on the wee middle dotted lines of the road. So I've cut it out, and then I realized I just need to cut it a little bit skinnier so there's no overhang. I'm just doing a really rough job because no one will really see this part at all. So again, just using my multi-matte medium to glue it down and just gluing it flat. That's pretty much my little road done, and now I'm going to move on to some of the hills and the trees. I've cut this out in Bristol smooth cardstock, and again it all kind of comes separate. You need to separate all of those dies, but I just keep them together for ease of storage and things. I just use some post-it note tape to block off some of the trees when I start doing some colouring, and then realise that I've probably got a few too many trees for what I need, so I'm just snipping a couple off. From here I'm just using the peeled paint distress oxide ink to colour in these hills. And as I said before, I've just used the post-it note tape to block off the little trees because I want those to be brown. So I've just done the same with the second piece, and I'm going to go over it again. These inks blend really smoothly on the Bristol Smooth cardstock, so that helps. I'm just using a little piece of scrap paper so that my fingerprints don't end up in the ink. And then I'm going to bring in some Mowed Lawn Distress ink, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this in so that there's some difference between the two greens of the two hillsides. So just a little bit here and there, and then kind of blend it in so it's all nice and smooth. From there I am going to use some vintage photo distress ink to do the little trees. So this is kind of like the trunk of the tree. So just peeling off the post-it note tape and then just blotting it on really roughly. It doesn't matter. So I've done that to both of the hillsides. I had also cut out the tops of the trees in the Bristol Smooth cardstock, but then decided that I actually just wanted to cut them out of some green cardstock. That would be just as easy. So you can see those up in the top of the screen there. Moving on to creating the sky, I've got this cloud die, and I've just cut it out of just a piece of scrap cardstock so that I can use it as a template. It might be a good idea that you could cut it out of acetate, and that way it would make it far more reusable. But anyhow, I'm taking some tumbled glass distress ink and just lightly going over it. I'm not great at this, and I always seem to get dark and light patches. It doesn't look so bad now that I see it on screen, but when I was doing it I thought it looked terrible. But in the end I end up doing my usual trick of covering up some of the parts that you don't like with some clouds. So I'm just going back and forward all over the place, and to make sure that nothing looks too matchy-matchy, I haven't used the same part of the cloud die one above the other. So going all over and just fixing up the odd little spot. Once I'm reasonably happy with it, I'm going to move on. So I'm just going to start assembling some of my pieces together here and see how they go. I need to put my sentiment on, and I'm going to say sending you sunshine of this new tree stamp that is also from AliExpress. just popping it on an acrylic block, and then I'm going to use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp my little sentiment, just testing it once down the bottom and then popping it up in the clouds there. I did contemplate having a little sun or something up in the corner of this card front, however I thought that the scene was probably busy enough without it, so I left it off for this one. So from here I'm going to start assembling. These Hillside dies are 5.5 inches wide, so that they're made to go landscape across your cards, so I always knew that I would have to cut some off. And here I'm just finding placement of where I want the trees to be on the card. So I know that I was always going to have to cut one of the trees off. I was just figuring out which way I wanted it to go, and just making sure that the little tops of the trees don't run into my sentiment. So again, the trees look wonky in this, but it's only because I have tilted them all forward. They actually aren't wonky once I press them down. Adding some more liquid glue to add on the bottom hillside. I'm going to have enough dimension as it is with the road being popped up, so I just want these hillsides flat. I'm not tucking anything in behind them either, so that doesn't matter. Just cutting off the excess that's down the sides, which there's plenty of. And then I can get a better idea of how my card's going. I'm going to, before I do the tops of the trees, I'm going to put the road in. And when I look at this, I thought that my car looked a bit matchy-matchy to the road. So I decided that I would use some Spiced Marmalade Distress Oxide ink to make the car more orange. I thought that would go well with the greens. So I started off really gently. I was just going to do some sort of shading around the outside. And then this is somewhere along here I decided that I would just go full force and create an orange car. I do have to be a little bit careful though, because of the Distress Oxide ink, it would colour the wheels orange. So I'm just using these couple of wee bits of paper. It's a bit lazy to make the car, to make sure that I don't get the wheels. I don't get the black, the ink into the black wheels. So this is where I'm just going much heavier and just basically creating an orange car. Okay, so now I'm done with the little car, and I can adhere the road on how I want it to, and I was going to lie it flat, but then decided that I would pop it up with some foam squares. So just popping squares all along the road, and then removing the backing release paper, and just always making sure constantly that I check with the other little bits in my scene to make sure it's all going to fit. I'm going to put a couple of foam squares on the back of my car too. I just have to be a little bit careful that because you can see through the acetate of the car window, that I don't get it in the way. And I just need a thin wee line there because the road is already popped up and half of the car is sitting on top of the road. Now to adhere the tops of the trees, I'm just going to use some multi-matte medium. I just need them to be flat. There's plenty of dimension in the card, and so I'm just squirting a little bit of glue behind it and then popping them all down. So I've got all of my little trees adhered, and then I'm just going to cut off the edge pieces so that the trees lie flush with the side of the card, and then sticking on some clouds, and each one of these little clouds is on a little foam square to pop them up. And that's pretty much my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this card. I had heaps of fun making it, and I hope I see you next time. Thanks, bye!